your own life, at the same value say, it's my job to keep you safe. Those are values. When you take on the responsibility of it's my job to keep you safe, those are values. And sometimes we don't think about how much of this is about me versus them. I mean, the amount of parents I've worked with that I am like, uh-oh, I'm dealing with your childhood trauma. Right? Uh-oh, we're not talking about this childhood trauma. We're talking about you. And the amount of times that you will find yourself coaching parents navigating their own trauma, their own unhealed spaces. I mean, it's like an impossible thing to not work with young people and not navigate parental trauma. But if you're aware of that, how much does that change the framing? If you're just aware that people are showing up with their own pain and their own trauma, if you're working with a parent that is zealous, but you realize that, I mean, this parent loves their kid. How many kids don't have parents that care about them? You know, you start to go to that place. If you can approach a parent from that place of, I know you love your child, and so many times I see people place judgment on families so harshly because they don't align, their values don't align. So many times. We don't enter with inquiry. And so, I want you to think about, what am I assuming? Whose perspective am I censoring? How might my bias affect the decision? And then how self-awareness helps advocate. So we're gonna, and so these are, for us, one of the things that we want you to think about when you think about power and systemic approaches. Because the advocate has a certain level of power when they enter the space. They are usually considered, especially by families that are really, new to the country, having language barriers. The more barriers a family has, the more power you have in that space, because they're trusting you to navigate. And so if you are not thinking about your biases and you're operating without that consideration, your power becomes really dangerous. And so many times we see people with institutional power. So when I say institutional power, I mean that they have the ability to make decisions that will affect the child, and that have, the system will support them. If you are a person that you saw a conversation between a child and a young person, and you thought that conversation was violent, you have the institutional power to report that. That's within, and that system will support you to do so. And so, I'm not assuming that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that is institutional power. There's something there that you can access to support your feelings. The family doesn't have necessarily the same. And so, as you hold that power, and you're not being aware, that's what makes people so dangerous. And we've worked with people, I'm sure all of us have worked with someone who is like, hey, let's slow down. Hey, like, well, do you know where that, do you know how people speak in that country? Sometimes volume is a whole thing. I see, especially volume is a whole thing for people. For some people, you're like, why are you talking so low? I can't hear you. And it's like, well, I'm disrespectful. And some people, you're like, why are you always yelling? Like, what are you talking about? We're just chilling. But those things can be interpreted completely in different ways, depending on what your personal experiences are. And so, my bad.
So, as Raquel is rightfully pointed out, like, what we're going to invite you to reflect a little bit is like what are the biases that we have. So these are like three main concepts that we want to focus on: power, bias, and boundaries. Because we are always going to be in tension when we are becoming advocates for this one. As she was saying, we hold power. We hold power because we institutionally have a position of authority. That means we have access to resources. If you are operating from within an organization, that organization that you are receiving kids or interacting kids with give you an institutional position, but also you're the adult. You have more experience. You are approaching with higher knowledge for that certain topics. So you are going to be perceived or being active in a position of authority for the youth, for their families as well. So that's an important thing that you should be quite mindful of it. So how are you using that one to influence their decision? You know, if you are having a medical emergency, I'm not a medical doctor. I don't know. If my doctor tells me you have to get this or this treatment, okay, I take your word for it. You study for this. I do not. I watch Dr. House and The Pit. And that's it. The Pit is great. You should watch it all because it's So similarly, we have to recognize that we all have biases. You know, you had your eyes closed like a few minutes ago, but you were listening, so some of the claps were quite rhythmical, but some were also more, sort of stronger than other ones. Because we are perceiving like, well, maybe more information, maybe I don't agree with this. And it's up to the parents, it's up for the youth, we don't know. At the end of the day, what you are saying is like, based on my personal values and my personal beliefs, I will do this on that. And if that's happening in this simple clapping exercise, that most definitely is going to be happening when you're interacting with the youth, when you're interacting with the parents. If they call to you, it's like, hey, what do you think I should do? Well, I think you should decide, but I will do this, and that I will do this, and not I will do that. That's an indicator of your biases. And those biases are influenced for multiple reasons, because we cannot control it. So which families do you advocate harder for? Depending on the situation of the family, their prior experiences. If you have known them for a while, or they just like were introduced to you, what is your perception of them? That's going to influence how you're going to be approaching them. Who you're going to be recommending to get like a program or limited slots. Oh, we can get you a tutor or this one. Which one I'm going to recommend to you? That's going to influence your decision making. And that's going to be important. So when do you label a parent as difficult or a youth as difficult? Are they like difficult because they're generally like more confrontational personality, or are they simply stressed and they're worried about their youth and they're having a bad day and they're like just trying to fix some stuff? The way we're perceiving them is going to influence heavily how we're doing that, and we should try to be mindful of that for ourselves, because that is going to impact directly in our work. And our work is like, oh, well, another day you go home, but for them, our work with them impacts their life, shapes the opportunities they're going to be having moving forward. And of course, the element of like race, class, language, culture, all that is going to impact heavily on how we're perceiving. Because of my personality, experience, and so on, I could be more sensitive to a Latino family than like a black or like an Asian one. Not because I have anything against them, but because I have more in common here and I can relate more easily with them. So I should be mindful of my own biases in that aspect. And finally, an issue that we have to deal a lot in the role of youth, in our case as employees, government employees, is the role of boundaries. We have to do advocacy. We're always advocating for. We are mandated reporters, and that's kind of like the highest level of advocacy that you could do, legally speaking. But if we're going to be advocacy without respecting the people's boundaries, their own beliefs, their story, whatever, that's an overreach. On the other hand, it was like, well, that's not up to me. I must be respectful of this and that, and I don't want to overstep. Then we're being compliance. And that's a hard line to balance because of like, when do I overstep in? When am I being judgmental? When am I being like permissive? When am I being complicit? So those are the things you're going to be encountering, probably you encounter regularly. So when do you step in? When do you step back? Who decides, as we were like clapping earlier on, that's something that we all want you to keep in mind, and that's what we were distributing. You all, do you all have it, like the sheet of paper? Excellent. They have it there. No, it's the other one. Oh no, it was this one. Yes.
Okay, so now on your tables. Can I have actually someone read this for us out loud?
I'll read it.
Yeah.
Marisol is a 16-year-old high school student who has been meeting regularly with a youth program coordinator at school. Over the past few months, she opened up about feeling overwhelmed and disconnected at home. Marisol recently shared that she wants to apply to colleges out of her state. She's doing well academically and her teachers are supportive, but at home, her mother has made it clear that she expects Marisol to stay local, help care for the younger siblings, and contribute financially after graduation. Marisol says, if I stay, I feel stuck. If I leave, I feel like I'm abandoning my family. She asked the coordinator, can you talk to my mom? She listens to adults more than me. A week later, Marisol's mother approaches the coordinator during pickup and says, my daughter is getting ideas that don't make sense for our family. I hope you are not encouraging her to leave. She has responsibilities here. That was my story.
Imagine a mom being like, I hope. I would lie. I'm like, I've been here. Where they, they're coming in and saying, let me tell you how to do your job. And I'm like, okay, let me go talk to a colleague first before I respond. Right? Sometimes you're like, So, we're giving you here a quick tool to think this through. But in your tables, we want you to discuss who are you advocating for and how? What risks exist for the youth, for the family? What is your role in this situation? And what would you do next and why? So you are the coordinator. We're going to give you about 10 or so minutes to chat at your tables.
Everyone has a
Do you
pen.
want to join this table right here? Just make the conversation. Sorry.
I did say no.
Oh, yeah,
No, I think it's just those questions on the right.
Yes.
Oh, all set. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
I feel like something that's worked really well for me navigating situations like this is asking both parties, like, what is your desired outcome out of this conversation? And that really helps find like a commonality and a common goal of like, although we might have a difference in opinion of where we want this to go, like we're both rooted in, if like mom says, well, I love Marisol and I want her around and I need her help, and Marisol loves her mom, doesn't want that connection with Rachel, wants to go to school. You have the commonality that they both care about their relationship. So any conflict that you have to navigate is fit in that. And it also gives you a really clear understanding of what both of them want out of the conversation. So I like that's like
That was in the paper.
I don't think it has to happen together. You have to do it separately.
I think that there can be a lot of emotionally charged meetings when you're like in the room together, and that can be hard sometimes. Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So like what I know what mom needs, advocate for other services that she's looking for Marisol to fulfill.
Right.
Whether it's childcare.
The concern is spelled out there. It's just one of those. Like this is my
Yeah.
You read the 16 loud and clear, yeah. I'm curious of like our role as a coordinator, if that's like in a school setting, if it's in a therapeutic setting, because I feel like when I'm thinking about that, what is really what the situation you're advocating for, yeah, it's very contextual.
it could be indicative of
Yeah.
what's your intent?
Right. No! It's great. Please don't.
Start off with
I think it gets back to what you were saying. I feel like, what are the risks? Like, is it that there's a financial burden and like, we need to connect resources? Access to oldest and the family structure is just like generationally, this is what we do. I think that would determine how we get this. Yeah. I feel like my answer to everything today is age or right.
My space at all, but would it be helpful, you think, for mom to like understand the benefits or like the future benefits that Marisol could get from leaving home? Like maybe that would help. Yeah.
This is like some solutions to just find ultimately your choice.
Yes. Autonomy of choice. Yeah.
Well, that's why 16.
Yeah.
That facility is just, people be making great decisions.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the other piece too. It's like, that's the boundaries part of like if you're gonna stay advocating for knowing that mom's already questioned the boundaries.
I think it's one or the other for the family. It's advocating for the family.
Right.
As well as, Marisol, why do you go out? Like, why do you, so I was interested, I'm thinking about money.
Sure, yeah.
Like, she told me on campus and go to Worcester State.
Right,
Like,
right.
isn't that great? Just like the home that's needed.
Yeah, yeah.
When you get to boundaries, if you have a very clear.
I work with some big people, so that, like, at least I don't have that hardcore.
Right, like that.
Okay. I'm gonna bring you all back. I'm happy that the conversation.
Great job, team.
And so as we were talking at our tables, let's just put a little bit out there. What is actually at stake for the young person? What were some of the things that were said? Sorry.
Loss of professional opportunity or loss of identity.
So some loss of identity, some loss of professional opportunities. What other things are at risk? Potentially a relationship with their parents.
And that's important, especially with immigrant parents.
Yes. Yes, when maybe your family ties are small, when your network is sometimes your immediate family, the nuclear.
And not just the relationship with parents alone, but also with the siblings, be the eldest child too. That itself impacts that relationship with trust.
Yeah, that you feel like you're going to be abandoning. And so, survival. Yeah. There's also I want to say the risk is carrying the weight of your choice. That exactly. I think that is, for me, the most thing that happens that has long-term impact on us. The guilt that you carry about the decision that you make to leave can be lose sleep, not be able to build connections once you get there. The anxiety, like the weight of that is, you can't put a number on that. If you don't. There might be rupture in the relationship.
We also confirm, I'm being on, this was me to some extent. Who are you? Because at the home you have one culture and values, and then in the outside world you have another culture and values, and your parents want you to make it. But who are you while you maneuver in the two cultures?
1 foot here and 1 foot there, right? And so, what about the parents? What's shaping that? Survival? Say more.
I mean, I think based on saying that they needed money and child's care and things like that, I think really basic needs. So there is a piece of like, I may not be able to choose on my own until I get that support.
Yeah. So who's gonna help around the house? What other things?
And I was going to say, fear of, like, you fear that when you relate, like, you don't relate to your child. I think, particularly if there's kids, you come to this country and preserve your identity, holding yourself as your baby and still pass on the same to your children.
Losing them. You feel like you're losing them.
I was going to say something similar. I was going to say like values, your family values, because where I come from, I come to like the eldest child does take care of the siblings. Like my older sister raised me so that my parents could work, and I actually never thought of it until like I came here and I got older that like there is a choice, like that it's not the responsibility of the eldest child to to really take care of us, but it's the culture that involves everybody in it. So, you know, it can become very uncomfortable, honestly, for the child, because, like, you know, you get together for family dinner, cookout, like, everybody, auntie, cousins was like, so you gonna leave your mom alone and not help her with the kids and things like that. So it's really, really hard. But, like, the parent, like, that's all they've known. Like, and they've been raised to believe that anything less than that is disrespectful, it's an abandonment of their values, and they're just not embracing, like, just the family values. So that could be like, start letting them question, like, did I not do well with raising my kids? Because then other family members are gonna chime in like, oh, Tony's kids are so disrespectful, they don't listen. So there's all these family dynamics at play, and you're trying to save face all the family members to make them think like, no, I have a good kid, like I raised a good kid. So there's so many different things that goes into that. They just don't know, because they believe that keeping them at home and keeping them in that little circle is the best way to protect them from all the external harm. That's their culture. That's what they do.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think there's the risk of the parent also in their losing their identity. That in itself feels very risky and dangerous to their own existence. Not only to the fear of what could happen to their child, but to themselves. I think so many times parents are easy to say, well, I'm doing this for your own good. Back to that. I'm doing this for you, just to keep you safe. But in many ways, they're keeping themselves safe too. Is that wrong? Right? That's complicated. Right? When you say it like that, we're like, well, I mean, it's not wrong. And it's an and. It's the and.
I'm good. After this, I'll stop. No. I'm just thinking because, so in all this, where's the father? Right? Where's the male, the father? The male will not be, he's gone. So now you have a child who's also not to be. That in itself creates that void for that mother. It increases that fear as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't know the conditions of the household. I mean, if they were, even if they have two parents, one could be ill. There could be so many things. The parent could, the mother could be ill. That's why they need the financial. We don't know. We know that in their narrative there is need. Why? That can be so complex. Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. 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 The question is, whose responsibility is it? And what is your responsibility in this situation? There's a lot of unknowns.
Why is that for what are her concerns? And then we also talked about the fact that as opposed to 17 or 18, and why was she choosing to go out of state? Why there are other solutions that they have to explore? Are the concerns financial? Does she go to college for 2 years and then transfer? There's lots of, seem like there are a lot of possibilities.
Yeah. And so what you're bringing up is really important, because one thing that we don't consider at the time is that we haven't thought about what the menu items they have in front of them are. Right? This is where the power comes in within your function. Is that there are several other options rather than this either or. Reminded that trauma causes either or thinking. Trauma creates binary thinking because trauma interrupts creativity. And you need creativity in problem solving. And so sometimes parents unintentionally will say, it's this or that, and don't have the capacity to say, let's think about this creatively. Is there an option where we both win? Why does there have to be a winner or a loser? That fundamentally is something that you are the resource. What are all the options here? Did we consider this? Do you know about this? Do you know about this resource? Do you know about this resource? Do you know that you can do 2 years here and 2 years there? Are we making this decision without even applying to schools? We didn't even get into any of the schools. You had this big beef and you didn't even get into any of the schools. That's also happened to me. Where I had like a whole thing with a parent, got them to a place, did all the options, and then they went to Worcester State. And that was okay, but I was like, well, you know, at least you got over that hump with your mom.
You helped the relationship.
Yeah. It was a meaningful conversation that happened.
We're also giving the parent the opportunity to talk to other parents who's of the same kind or of the same language, whose children are in college. I know that WPI had a parent weekend that we attended various times, and we used to empadrinar the ones from South and Central America because the parents were in this situation. They didn't want to leave their kids there. But to talk to the parents so that we feel, hey, you know, it's okay.
Yes.
Be fair, for the parents, you know, with the immigration status, you know, to be like, I don't know what could occur to my child.
Absolutely. The fears are valid.
Yes, they are.
The fears are valid. That's the function of you acknowledging that there's real concern there, that there is, you know, that there are risks there. That is like one of the most important things, is that you have to acknowledge that there is truth to how they feel. That validation is essential to the conversation continue.
Even before you may get to your point about for people processing that there is a difference in values for
Definitely.
and why is that difference there and what does that mean about my child?
Absolutely. And being the soundboard, I find that being the soundboard so often allows you the opportunity to give feelings language. Language that perhaps they didn't have accessible to them. And you say, oh, when you say this, I'm hearing this. Right? So much of and any relationship, when you're hearing someone speak about something, being able to give them the words to a feeling allows them to gain more clarity. And so that's a tool that you can do. And then lastly, what is the most effective next step? I think you said some of it here.
Providing the right education.
Education, you think of what are the tools that they need? What are the resources that they need? How can I increase the items on the menu? Curiosity.
We covered it, honestly, I think it covered it in 3. It's like, you know, I think to go into it open mind, instead of saying like, I'm on the side of the child or I'm on the side of the parent, it's going in with an open mind and really listening to what's driving the decision. Because, you know, we have the conversation here, it's like if they're like, oh, I wanted to go to a local school. But going to a local school doesn't necessarily mean they'll still have the time to babysit depending on their classes, or they'll have the time to get a full-time job to help with the other things. But what truly is driving decisions, so listen to what it is that they need, that they're really truly saying. And then honestly, because of your role, you have connection to resources that can potentially help them where they're able to utilize those resources instead of just solely relying on their child. So I think it's listening without forming an opinion before you go in, finding out what's driving it, and honestly, like your next step depends on that. What it is that they truly need versus like, well, I know that they need this because it worked for that person, but every single person is different. So until you listen and
Until you understand,
cannot be
until you truly understand exactly what the need is, you cannot respond to it. Exactly. Exactly. And so, for a trauma-informed approach here, I think that acknowledging the stress that both people are carrying, and then like holding this really important trust. Holding that trust is so essential. And so sometimes that means that you are holding space, and that's where you know that that line can't be crossed. Sometimes I always find it important to be like, I'm gonna be the bearer of bad news. I don't. Sometimes I'm connecting them with a more informed person about something that can give them expertise, advice. Speaking to parents that have sent their kids away. Speaking to someone from the higher ed about housing situations. Or taking a tour and seeing what it looks like in real life. There's so many things that you don't have to deliver the message. You can maintain the relationship. You can just create the opportunity for exposure. The biggest mistakes I've done is holding all of that myself. As the advocate, the biggest mistakes is me feeling the responsibility that I should be holding all of that information. The best thing we can do as advocates is create the opportunity. That's what we need fundamentally to do. And so, this is just a closing reflection for you to think about of where you want to think about you as an advocate. Where in the future you want to say, this, I was doing it this way and yeah, it didn't work. It's not working. I'm not asking those questions. I'm not inquiring about root cause. I am dealing with surface level symptoms. I'm looking at the plant and I'm saying, oh, is it getting enough sun? You know, is it, you know, is the watering happening versus thinking about the soil? Is it planted in the right place? What plant is it next to? And so I want you to have the opportunity to just go into that and think about where you want to be. God, I'm so sorry.
So I know we're with time over, so just let's think about like this question. Be mindful that it's not about like what should I do. It's about like who is impacted by how I should work. So let's keep thinking about it, and I think we can wrap it up right here.
Yeah, thank you.
Raquel,
Okay.